sure you take the time to finish that up. We also would like to remind you that we're recording this event. So you'll see that we'll have a recording available afterwards, and we'll be posting that to our Pacific Division YouTube site so that people can watch it again. So thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Chuck for facilitating this for us again.
No problem, Kirsten. Okay, everybody, glad all of you made it out tonight. A few others, I think, are joining us along the way. I'd like to check and see. I know Dustin's here. Is Lacey here yet? Vicki, are you on yet? I saw Vicki trying to come on earlier, but who was that?
I'm on, guys.
Okay, you're very weak, Vicki, on your voice. Okay, just letting you know.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Huh? Is it coming in clear enough?
You're very weak as far as volume goes. So.
I don't know how to turn it up anymore.
Okay, we'll try and see if we can hear you. Anyway. Okay, everybody. We're going to get started tonight. Some of you may have been on the presentation that we did before with the Confidence Builder on the same subject, Yard Dog, but we had 3 different individuals speaking that night as well. So we went out, and a lot of people wanted to hear more about the Yard Dog that wasn't able to make it. So the Pacific Institute training team decided to put on another event. So that's what we done, and we went and got another set of participants. I'm trying to see, there they are. Okay, I'll be watching this, and this also is our participants this evening. I'll go through introductions in a little bit. Is Vicki, Dustin, and Lacey. Hopefully Lacey can make it. But anyway, let's do some housekeeping before we really get into this. And I'm going to ask that you hold your questions to the end after the presentations are done, and then we will see if your question maybe was answered during that time. But we're going to try to hold that and have the questions at the end. Please also make sure your mics are muted. If you're not presenting, please make sure your video is turned off also, as well as your mic. Now, we're going ahead and start with this. Like I said, does anybody, well, this is up, AKA Yard Dog, and this is the definition of responsibilities of the Yard Dog in the Red Cross kitchen area. And so Loadmaster is responsible for ensuring that each mobile delivery vehicle, and we call them MRVs, is loaded with the required items. And those are the correct number of meals, snacks, and drinks as well. Then they have designated routes, and the Loadmaster Yard Dog makes sure that they get on to their designated routes in the order that they need to go out. Some need to go out further, so they'll be sent out first, and the ones closer in would be sent out toward the last. But anyway, the inventory, the Loadmaster works closely with the route planner. That's what we're just talking about, and the inventory supply chief, and operates under the supervision of the mobile feeding supervisor. Okay, now the 3 individuals that are going to be presenting this evening, Vicki, Dustin, and Lacey, are kitchen site managers. I've worked with all 3 of them at different locations, different times, and they know what they're talking about. So this evening, I'd like to start off by asking Vicki, can you give us kind of a brief bio of yourself, please?
I've been with the Red Cross since 2005. I drove the IRV for the first 10 years, and I've been doing kitchen sites for the last few years. For 3 a year. Love what I do and have great teams that follow me. And I think partly because we have a lot of fun, we get a lot accomplished, and that's what we're there for, to take care of the client. Did you get that then, Chuck?
Sorry, Vicki, say again, please.
Did you understand me? Am I coming through loud? Yeah.
You still got a little echo in the background.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, just one moment.
So I don't know why.
Just a moment, Vicki. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mute everybody. And Vicki, Dustin, as you talk, unmute yourself, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Vicki, now I have to unmute myself. Vicki, go ahead and unmute yourself and try again. See if that's any better.
Is that better now? So can you hear me, Chuck?
Yes, I can hear you much better, Vicki. Thank you. Go ahead and do it again. Do your intro again, please. Introduce yourself again,
Okay,
Vicki.
I didn't stand. Okay, can you hear me? Because I'm going to start, okay?
Yes, we hear you, Vicki. Start, please.
Okay. I started with the Red Cross in 2005 and took mass care. I chose feeding as my primary, and that's what I've done. I drove the IRF for 10 years while I stayed to different DRs. And then they asked me to do a kitchen down in between Austin and San Antonio. And that's when I started doing kitchens, and I've done those ever since. Love a lot of it. I mean, I've done a feeding lead in headquarters as well. Probably the biggest kitchen that I ran was in Baton Rouge, and I had 45 IRFs in that kitchen. So it was a very long. Some of the kitchens that we do maybe only have 5, but it's what we do in that area and take care of the clients.
Okay, good. Dustin, give us a brief bio of yourself, sir.
Yes, hello, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm the regional feeding lead for Oklahoma and Kansas. I have been with the Red Cross since 2011. I have been on numerous big deployments. My biggest were Hurricane Sandy and Harvey. That was I had several, maybe 38 IRFs or 40 IRFs there that was at my kitchen there. I ran 2 kitchens that were kind of side by side. We did about 5,000 meals a piece. Max, we didn't do the max, but we could have done that many. But I have been driving the IRF. That's how I started out, and then in the past 4.5 years, I've been in the leadership. Occasions to better myself, and I appreciate this opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Dustin. I'm trying to see if Lacey was able to get on tonight. Lacey, are you on?
I'm here, Chuck.
Oh, very good, Lacey. All right, Lacey, can you give us a brief bio of yourself?
Yes, of course, my name is Lacey. I started the Red Cross in 2009 as an IRF driver. I took all my mass care classes. My primary is feeding, of course. Feeding is pretty much my passion. I drove an IRF for about a year and a half on deployments. After that, I started working in kitchens, went to kitchen management, and then the last 3 years, I've pretty much just been in headquarters when I deploy as feeding lead.
Okay, thank you, Lacey. All right, that introduces our panelists for this evening. I'm going to be asking just a few questions and asking for each one of your responses, panelists, and then we'll go from there and see if we got any questions after the presentation that you give us. Okay. What's some of the best times you've had on a DR, Dustin, and that you can remember? And as if you've worked as a yard dog, or if you've had a good yard dog, explain what made that person a good yard dog as well.
Yes, I had a lot of great experience in North Carolina. Kitchen in Jacksonville, North Carolina. We had a big operation there. The yard dog, in my experience that I have, some people have their different ways of doing it, but we follow the guidelines of the Red Cross and the yard dog, Loadmaster. A lot of people, it's not in the really that big a description, but in the toolkit or whatever. And so that way, but I've had them check reefers to make sure that they're the quality, they inspect the food that comes in and make sure that it's at the reefer's at temperature, and then make sure they check the fuel. Some people may have different ways of doing it, but that's how I have them. And then checking the pallets, making sure that the stuff's going in the right order and safety, but make sure that we have the herbs lined in order from furthest to the closest, like you mentioned earlier. But one of my good experiences is they really helped out inventory and stuff. They really, a lot of the good feedback that I've always had was they would like to do that again if they had that opportunity, because they liked the experience because they never done it and they ended up liking it. And that was my experience from them, and several others as well, and Harvey. And we always had a good communication in that area. That's the main, they're my eyes and ears on the ground outside the kitchen, as long as they work well with the Blue Hat too.
Dustin, is there a specific gap for the yard dog?
The yard dog is in the under the kitchen site manager. That's the information that I've seen the latest on. So
Okay.
That's where I found it as under that role.
Okay. All right. Good. Lacey, how about yourself? What's some of the experiences you had working in the kitchen and as a yard dog? Have you worked as a yard dog, or can you relate to someone that has worked as a yard dog?
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lacey. Go ahead.
Yes, I've worked it as a yard dog before in the kitchen. My experiences with the yard dog, I feel, were actually pretty good. Being out there in the yard, helping load the herbs, getting everything set up, working with Southern Baptist, making sure everything's correct on your pallets before it gets loaded out. I mean, it's just a blast. I love it. But what was your other question? Because I'm having a problem hearing you. I'm out at the campground, so I'm having a bad reception.
Okay, no problem, Lacey. Well, I tell you what, tell us, is there a gap? There's no gap, correct, for yard dog? It's just a feeding SA or an SV position, correct?
Well, last I knew, it could be either a feeding SA or feeding SV. I've never actually seen a real gap. I think there should be.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, what is a Blue Hat, Lacey?
The Blue Hat is part of the Southern Baptist Convention that go out and run the kitchens. The Blue Hat is the one that's in charge of the yard. And
okay. All right. Blue Hat is usually the similar to the kitchen site manager for Southern Baptist. He oversees the kitchen and all the people in the kitchen, all the operations of that kitchen is a blue hat. Okay, and since we're talking hats, a white hat is similar to the feeding lead at headquarters. Is what a white hat would be. He will be over several kitchens, in charge of several Southern Baptist kitchens. And then the yellow hat, if you see the picture here, you see the guys in the yellow t-shirts as well as the yellow hats. They are the workers, the cooks, and the people that do the work around the kitchen as well. Okay, let's go to Vicki, ma'am. Why don't you tell us your experience with yard dogs and your experience in the kitchen?
I guess my best take on saying yard dog, yard master does is they are the right-hand person to whoever is running the kitchen. The site usually have an admin that helps us with paperwork and stuff like that. But that yard dog keeps everything out there under control and keeps it moving the way it should be. Their function, besides just loading and keeping those serves get to go out on time and everything, they've got to check and make sure that we've got supplies coming in and keep it organized. And one of the bigger things that drives everybody nuts, it's the refrigeration on the ones like with our ice truck and things like that. Quite often that blue hat may tell you, if you are a site manager, don't have your yard dog worry about that. I'll take care of that for you. And sometimes they don't. It just kind of depends on what size. Work hand in hand. And probably my best experience was just recently in Panama City. And I had 3 down there simply because we had no power. Not even cell service. We didn't have porta potty, we didn't have showers, nothing. So all kind of just one great big thing that a kitchen site is. But there's always got to be somebody that's the mom and pop of the whole thing. And I'd say that yard master is probably the pop. If I'm the woman and I'm the site manager, then I'm the mom. And you want to have everybody believe in whoever those 2 people are. They know who they should go to, hopefully, and talk to if they've got problems, or do we need this, or do we need that. They've come out now so that in most of your bigger kitchens, herb coordinators, I have really most of the time just done that with my yard dog and myself doing that, but that is another position that the yard dog can help the site manager with if we don't have another person. But more often than not, like you said, and Duncan, Dustin, you did, and so did Lacey, we don't have a specific gap, but what I've seen is more often than not, we've pulled a nerve driver off that really shows some good characteristics for leading people and being ready to really jump in there. You know, and I think if you've been on a nerve, or if you haven't, but you're far better off to have been on the nerve if you're going to work any station in the kitchen, because you understand what those herb drivers and everybody else is going through. It's an awesome position. As far as I'm concerned, it's just as important as what the site manager is.
Okay, good. I would say myself, I would liken a yard dog would be, in the military terms, is a sergeant of the platoon, so to speak, as well. Also, they are the person like a foreman on a job out there in the yard. They're the ones that make sure things get done, orderly, they get done, and also take care of their drivers and the workers as well. So that brings me up then. Vicki, what would you say, who makes the best yard dog?
Like I just said, it doesn't matter whether it's a man or whether it's all kind of get up every day and put our pants on one leg at a time. It's somebody that can think, what I want to say, on the spot, and somebody that is willing to listen, because we don't know whether you're a site manager, yard dog, you don't know what that herb has gone through coming out there, and they need to come back and tell us. So we, as a yard dog or a site manager, you've got to work together. So that's why I said I really feel like quite often yard dogs, the best ones I've had started out as herb drivers and had done that for several years. I think they just understand the feelings and what those people go through once they leave that yard.
Okay, good. Dustin, who would you say makes the best yard dog?
Well, sometimes I will ask the certain questions about have they done certain, like, have you managed this or a little bit, but it doesn't. I echo what Vicky said. It really doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, or it just depends if they can, if that's the task that we assign, and how we determine that. It just depends if we ask them if they want to do that, and I usually I don't go through like 3 or 4 of them. I try to stick with the same person, so that way we're all on the same page. But it doesn't matter, like Vicky said, that what makes a good one is if they've had any experience before, but in stuff organizing, or it doesn't matter, like SV or SA in that. So
Good. Lacey, how about you?
First of all, sorry, I'm back. I lost my service. But to me, honestly, it doesn't matter if it's male or female. I would prefer somebody that is at least a seasoned herb driver. Because like Vicky said, they do know what it takes to go out and be an herb driver in these situations, mentally, physically, emotionally. Somebody that's got good communication skills, because they've got to be able to talk to the site manager. They've got to be able to talk to the herb drivers. So that's basically how I feel about it.
Okay, good. I remember one of my kitchens, the best yard dog. Actually, she was a stewardess, an airline stewardess, and she made the best yard dog for me out there. Okay, all right, Vicky, if you were looking for a yard dog? I know we went over the herb driver and what have you, but what kind of skills and knowledge would you like that that yard dog to have to select?
They've got to have a personality that will, if it gets in, especially when we're low, and those, you've got to be able to lay out that kitchen so that you've got a good path and a good flow. And so you need somebody that can actually look at that and say, and also listen, because those herb drivers will come back in and say, this isn't working where we're dumping because we're in the way of this or that. You cannot have somebody that is closed-minded. They have to be able to communicate and listen to help everybody work together. That's the big thing. It has to be a team.
Okay. Dustin, what would you say if you were looking for somebody? What would you be looking for other than an herb driver? What would you say a good qualifications of a yard dog would be?
I would have maybe organization, make sure they could, like Vicky said, communication. If they make sure that we're on the same page, and but yeah, that would be my main thing, is organization, and make sure that they're in good communication. And
Okay, good. Lacey, how about you?
Pretty much like everybody else: communication, organization. Somebody, like I said, with actual listening skills, instead of blowing off all the herb drivers, actually taking the time to listen to them, because they're coming in with so much information when they come back in, whether it be on the routes, or devastation out there in terms of pockets that we haven't been to, power outages. They got to be able to communicate with the Southern Baptist and work alongside of them.
Okay, good. All All right, I would say is somebody with good soft skills, because you're dealing with multiple personalities. Now, a yard dog may be dealing with 20 to 30 different IRF crews. And if that case, it's like 40 individuals to 60 individuals they're going to listen to, come back, tell their stories, tell their problems to, and things like that. And a good yard dog has got to be an excellent listener as well as a communicator, and communicate to people accurately what they're supposed to be doing, routes they're supposed to be taking, things like that. Also, it has to be organized, like they said, because when you're working with 20 to 30 IRFs out there, you got to know who's in what IRF, what order they go out, what they need aboard that IRF. One IRF may need X amount of meals when another IRF needs less or more. Is that IRF going to go to the shelter and drop off food, or is that IRF going out to a community way out that they may not be back until that afternoon when he's going out for lunch, late afternoon? Like I remember in Harvey, we were having IRFs go out for lunch and they were not getting back until 5 and 6 o'clock at night, and we were having to send other IRFs out the same route for dinner time. But that a yard dog has to know all of that and be able to coordinate that, like a orchestra, a conductor for an orchestra is kind of, I would also say that's what they have to do. But anyway, so this time we want to open it up to some questions, and I've got somebody monitoring the questions, so I'm going to ask her to give the questions out as they come out. Georgia, do you got the questions? Okay, my person lost connection there. Hang on just a minute. Let me see what I can do.
There's no questions.
Okay, there's no questions so far? Okay, let me go back up here.
Okay, I've got it back.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, there's been a couple questions in there about how do you apply to be a yard dog, and if it's not a specific gap, how could you put yourself in line to be one?
Ask Lacey if somebody answer that.
Lacey, could you answer that one?
Yeah, you don't really have to apply. I mean, when you get out there at the kitchen site, best thing to do, especially with me, is if you're interested in the yard dog position, just come up and ask, especially if you've never done it before, because if we've got enough people, you can always be paired up with somebody so you can be mentored and learn how to actually do it. If you do have experience, that's even better, because that takes a lot off the kitchen site manager and everybody else that's working out there.
Thank you. Dustin or Vicki, do you have anything to add to that?
Go ahead, Dustin. I guess the only thing I would say is pretty soon you're going to, after you've gone out a few times, it's like Lacey said, introduce yourself when you get there, because that is one of the big positions as a site manager that we have to look for somebody for. But you'll find that after a while, and I'm sure that, Dustin and I have talked about this, and Lacey, I don't know, but I guess my point is pretty soon you've almost got a team, guys. When you show up at a DR, after you've been out there this many, as like I have for as many years, I'm not saying I know everybody, because I certainly don't, and I meet a lot of great people, new ones every year. So it's like Lacey said, go up and talk to that site manager after you get to a kitchen and ask them if there's maybe could learn this, or if you've already got experience in it, offer your talents, because good yard dogs are hard to find. They really are. I mean, most of them that I've worked with are great. I've had a few, And probably the personality is you've got to be very open. You've got to listen to your people. They're your partners. They're your team. And if they don't accept you as a yard dog and know that they can come to you openly without feeling like you're going to scream at them or whatever, then you're going to work and it's going to work great. So yeah, but there's quite often, like I said, I show up at a DR and I have people that'll call me and say, Vicki, are you going to this DR? If you are, what location are you going to? Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Dustin, do you have anything to add?
Just like what Vicki said, it's just yard dogs are, like we have a lot of people that say they don't know, they've never heard of the position, but a lot of times I just, what Vicki said is people have get people to mentor or say, I usually have introduce myself on a DR or in a kitchen site, and then I just ask what my needs are, and then but like everybody, Lacey and Vicki said, basically the same thing.
Thank you very much. And we have one other question. Is the yard dog replacing the IRV coordinator? And Chuck, I'll send that one to you.
No, yard dog is actually, like I said, it's the load master, and the load master has specific duties, as well as the IRV coordinator has specific duties as well. And so neither one can replace the other at this time. Up to you, dear.
And that looks like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Those the IRV coordinator guys is something, and I don't know, Chuck, you may know more about this than me, but they were really pushing that in 2018 to get people trained as an IRV coordinator. They work in the bigger kitchens. They don't necessarily need to be used in a smaller kitchen, but they do work hand in hand. They don't do the same thing as that yard master because they're working with routes and that kind of stuff.
All right, and another comment is it astonishes this person that there's no training or guidance specific to the yard dog position. So does the Red Cross feel that this is definitely a on-the-job training and done on the fly? Dustin, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, this has been brought up by National before. There's really been very little feedback that, as far as I know, from them yet. But I'm looking into that still. Since of COVID, everything's kind of shifted a little bit. Basically, when somebody comes on the job and we say, can you be yard dog? It's basically how we identify it. Our load master, if they want to use the load master as the new term. Yard dog's been around a while, so people refer to that. Some people will use the load master as the verbiage. But the training is, we walk them through that. We on the kitchen site, and we sometimes it's very overwhelming at times at first because we're trying to get everything organized for the IRVs in place. So there's really not a description in the job toolkit it explains that. It just shows a graph of what they're under. So we just show them the proper training that we've been mentored by in the past kitchens, and then if they have any other questions, they usually speak up, or I always tell them to speak up if they don't know something, let me know. Because there's other positions at that kitchen that were so busy, the ERP coordinator and the site manager. And like Vicki said, you use them at a bigger kitchen site, the coordinator, but the yard dog does not specifically have any training, to my knowledge, in the toolkit. It just shows the graph of what you use them there. So.
Okay, thank you. Lacey, any idea where the term yard dog came from?
I am here again. Actually, to be honest with you, I really don't. I've never actually heard where it came from. Never had the time to ask.
Vicki?
I can't honestly know that the reason they said that we were going to the yard master, that some of the people thought that it was kind of degrading to call somebody a dog. And the only thing I can say is, one time when I was in Louisiana, we had two because there was so many herbs, they had them in another lot. So the guy at the other end, they called him the puppy. And so I don't know why they call them yard dogs. Don't have a clue, unless it's just because they're always around the yard and they're busy.
David in the chat said it's because they run around like crazy dogs. They're so busy.
That could be true. That could be true.
Okay, that seems to be all for the moment. Chuck?
Okay, good. Thank you. Some good questions there. Now, as far as the training goes, I know some of you wonder how we get by without have training for different positions. It comes under mentorship. Like any one of these three individuals speaking tonight could mentor for any position in the yard, in the kitchen. And because they went through it before. And usually that's what happens with an individual that is doing a position for the first time. It's just like in a shelter or in a DES operation. You do a lot of mentoring as to what to do. Now, you do find those individuals. I knew of one individual, that's all he ever did, was doing the Loadmaster yard dog duties throughout. He was did them in Sandy. That's all he did, and was doing the Loadmaster responsibility. He didn't want to do anything else. He loved doing that. So as far as a specialty track, we've just in Red Cross is just now coming out with a specialty track for kitchen site managers. Kitchen feeding managers is one thing, and we think that a feeding manager may know how to run a kitchen, but not necessarily true. So they've put together a specialty track of kitchen site manager. There's special training that they go through, and kitchen site training as well. And then once they do that and can be recognized by leadership that they know the duties of a kitchen, then they can have that specialty track, just like IRV is a specialty track. So it will be and is a kitchen site manager, a specialty track. Each one of these three individuals here tonight specialty track. So are there any other questions or comments that we'd like to hear from everybody tonight? Anybody, rather. Okay. Somebody speak up.
Miss Lacey, just want to say hi to everybody out there, especially Vicki, Dustin, and
everybody. Lacey is in Indiana right now, so he's about 2 hours ahead of us, and that, I'm sure he's probably getting a little tired toward the end of the evening. Dustin is from Kansas, correct, Dustin?
That is correct, yes.
And Vicky is from Nebraska. So we were able to reach out and have these three individuals come tonight. Now, I'm going to say that most of you got to see the one slide up where they were had their email addresses, and that's the one we got up now. If any of you would like to know more about these, I'm going to ask if it's okay, our participants, not participants, our panelists tonight would be okay if somebody text them, email them rather, and ask their questions. Would that be okay with you, Vicky?
Absolutely. If I can help somebody, I always kind of think knowledge isn't any good unless you share it.
Okay,
So
thank you, Vicky.
More than happy.
Yeah. Dustin, would you be willing to share with others as well?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I'd be more than glad to help. But the more knowledge and the information given is the best in this organization.
There you go. Lacey.
Of course, anything that can be done or any questions asked, I'm definitely there. If you don't want to email me, go on VC and get my phone number, and you can text me anytime.
Okay, very good. All right. So,
Barbara has her hand up.
Barbara, you got your hand up, ma'am?
Yes, I was just going to go back to the topic of the definition of yard dog. Belinda and I were doing some Google searches, and one that I found that's probably the most appropriate is that a yard dog is a truck driver that drives the truck that only moves the trailers around the truck yard from spot to dock. So a usage would be, where's that yard dog with trailer 843? We got to load it before 8. So it's someone that moves the things around in the yard to get stuff loaded. So we've, obviously it's not a Red Cross term, so I think we're combining things to make it work for how we do stuff.
You're right, Barbara. And thank you for looking that up and letting everybody know what a yard dog is now, right?
Yeah.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the trucks they use to move things around is a puppy as well when they are working in the yard like that. But anyway. Okay.
There's one more.
One more. Who is it?
Okay, Anne says they're called yard dogs because they nip at your ankles and bark out loud to keep everything moving.
That's a good definition as well. Okay. Kirsten, are you still on, ma'am? Diane, are you on? I guess.
I'm on mute.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I couldn't get on quick enough.
Is there anything you would like to say before we had a short one tonight? Not many questions, but anything you'd like to say?
I just thank everyone for coming and participating. I think there's lots of information that we need to learn about. I know it's not a gap. I know of several yard dogs who've been really successful over the years, and it's mainly because they went out in feeding or as an IRV driver worked really hard, and towards the end of their deployment they were asked to step in those steps, and that's really how they moved into that spot. They didn't look for the gap of a yard dog or the position. They really moved forward to work hard in their job in the kitchen or in an IRV or doing other work, and their supervisor asked them to try something new.
That's right. And hopefully, I don't know if any of you on here are work in the kitchen or around the kitchen. A lot of time IRV drivers are, I want to be out with the people, same as a lot of shelter essays. I just want to be with the clients in the shelter. And there's a place for you in all of those. And hopefully maybe some of you will step up to want to be a supervisor or a load master or another position and learn more as we go. Because we need more people that love what they're doing out there, as well as learning new things. Now, I know during COVID, we're going to have a hard time finding people that wants to be load masters actually get to do load master work anymore, or even kitchen site managers during COVID. But there will be a time that we will need more of you to be involved in feeding. And if you're looking for a different gap to enjoy, I think you would enjoy being in the feeding gap as well out. and maybe you will get to work with Dustin or Vicky or Lacey somewhere along the line. I'm sure you will, because they're out there quite a bit. All right. If there's no other comments or anybody want to say anything, I'd like to say to Kirsten and her team, thank you for setting all of these events up for us, from all the lessons to the confidence builders throughout. I know you've been working at this about what, 2 months at least, something like that, Kirsten, to get
Well,
all
I
this.
think Diane's been wrangling the confidence builder people for about 3.5 months. If I go back, I think the middle of April is when we were told to start working on this. So Diane has been working night and day on getting people set up and go from there. I'm just sending out invites and annoying you with lots of emails.
And being on a DR as well. But anyway, thanks, guys.
So, yeah, thank you, everyone. I would just remind you, please help us get those COVID trainings completed. You might think, why are they keep saying this? We really need to do it. It will just help our division as a whole. And then number 2, we would love for more people to get their sheltering gaps. So if you can do that, it will help out the region, help out your division. And I would just invite you to send it to your DWE. If you don't know who that is, we'll help you find it. All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
And thanks all for being here tonight. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Vicki, and thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
guys.
Thank you.
So if you're looking for what the COVID training is, a couple of questions on the side. If you go into Edge and you type in COVID, you'll see several videos pop up, and there is a COVID assignment that you can go through and complete your training through the videos.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, we had a hand pop up there, Kirsten. Belinda. Did Belinda sign off?
I'm on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I did have to do with the training. There's some parts of it that are a little confusing. So if you are taking the COVID-19 training for supervisor, but you've never done sheltering, does that mean you shouldn't be doing the supervisor position? Or because it looks like it's just in time training?
So what I would do is I would just go in to take the curriculum.
Yeah.
If you want to do the sheltering, so I would do the mass care sheltering supervisor, the mass care sheltering SA. People that are already a Red Cross supervisor have been encouraged to do the mass care sheltering piece. But if you've never been and worked in a shelter, you're not very sure about it, all you have to do is have one of the gaps. So doing the service associate is probably the best one you could do to help us out.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks.
There's less training too.
Well, I already have I already did the training because I wanted to see what was in the material. So and I'm actually glad I saw it. So I have the COVID-19 supervisor gap already, but then I was also told that I wouldn't get it because I haven't worked in a shelter, which is debatable, but it's never showed up on a. Anyways, I can have a separate conversation. It was just confusing.
Yeah, so the only thing you need is you in order to deploy in the division, Denise has asked everyone to have their shelter SA, SV, or health services SA or SV. Mm-hmm. So that is how you get a ticket to get to any DR, virtually, locally, anywhere at this point. And then we're working from there.
Okay. All right.
And Belinda, this is Barbara. If you wanted to work as a shelter supervisor because you've got lots of DR experience, you would just need to take the trainings, and then you would be eligible to do that on a DR, according to the rules we've been given.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions dealing with training? Because this is important, and I'm sure Kirsten would not mind answering them, because this is a very hot topic.